So we've got a build from somebody in chat. This is some kind of necromancer. We have summon skeleton, rip blood, summon volatile zombie, summon skeletal mage, and dreadshade. I'm not going to worry too much about like capping your elemental resistances or capping your void res, whatever. First of all, it's not as important in this game as it is in something like Path of Exile. There's another video on YouTube about that. Not only that, but like it's kind of boring. So like prefixes are like your offenses, suffixes are basically your defenses. Like you want health, you want res, you want endurance, you want stuff like that. But we're probably not going to spend our time worrying about that too much. Let's take a look at the mastery. It's 0 points in Lich. Necromancer and Lich don't really have any overlap. Stuff. Okay. So what's our main skill? It'd be nice to know like what like the main damaging skill or like what the damage rotation looks like. It's Cryomancer. Okay, let's see if we can dig through this and figure out what's going on. Skeleton archers, skeleton warriors removed, skeleton archer, skeleton archer. So we have skeleton archers. We have ice, cold damage skelly archers. What's Rip Blood doing here? It seems like Rip Blood is just being used for sustain. Gotcha. What about Volatile Zombie? We cast Dreadshade on something, and then we're like casting Volatile Zombie. So like this is what we're doing with our own time. Let's see what Skeleton Mage has got going on here. Skeleton Mage, Cryomancer. Okay, so we have cold damage overlapping with the cold damage archer and the Skeleton Mage. What is this? Increased chance to stun and freeze rate. I'm surprised you're using Frozen Tomb. I don't think Frozen Tomb's that good. I'd rather just like spec more points into Gravetide for like additional spell damage. Taking 2 points out here and putting 2 more points into Gravetide seems like a nice little way of increasing your damage, right? Especially when adaptive. Adaptive damage is... Oh god, you get 3 adaptive damage per point. Adaptive damage is like the cornerstone of all spell-based builds. And you oftentimes can never get enough of it. So wherever you can get it, do it, right? I think that's going to give you a lot of... Because like you're moving from 9 adaptive to 15 adaptive. It's kind of a big increase. Let's go to Dreadshade next. Honestly, I need to read Dreadshade because I don't really know what it does. Target minion takes 3% of health per second for each second the shade has been active, but it and minions around it deal 25% more damage. Apparently, this thing is super good. Whenever I'm browsing through a skill tree for the first time, I want to look for stuff that like fundamentally changes the skill to see if there's anything that like I'm totally missing, right? Okay, so it looks like our skills are pointing in the right direction. We have skeleton archers that are dealing cold damage. We have Rip Blood to sustain. We're casting Volatile Zombie. Is there any way to like change Volatile Zombie to cold damage? If there were, I would click on it, but it doesn't look like there is. I'm surprised that you don't have any movement skill. Does Volatile Zombie kind of look like an outlier to you? I kind of want Transplant in here, because Transplant would give you some defenses from bone armor. It would also give you like movement skill. I feel like my specializations whenever I'm building a character are like damage, utility, movement speed, XX, right? And let's take a look at the gear as well, okay? So we have a one-handed sword that has minion damage on it. Minion damage over time. I don't think we're really doing anything with minion damage over time, are we? I wonder if our weapon could be better here. What's a better weapon that we could be using? So there's a one-handed scepter, a skeletal scepter here, that has % increased minion damage as the implicit. I think if we could look for a skeletal scepter, let's go ahead and build something right now, right? Let's go skeletal scepter. So there, we have some kind of weapon here. Increased spell minion damage. It only applies to half of our minions because we have cryomancers and we have the cold archers. So it's only hitting half our damage, which kind of blows, but we'll keep poking around. We have hybrid chance to bleed on hit. So what can we use here instead? Let's browse real quick. Increased minion damage. We're using a death mask. I like the base. Bases in Last Epoch. I feel like bases in Last Epoch are a lot more impactful than something like Path of Exile because the implicits are so strong. In general, cooldown recovery speed is pretty good. I don't know how many cooldowns you're using. You have Rip Blood, which I don't think has a cooldown. Transplant does have a cooldown. So if you opted into Transplant, maybe you could use cooldown recovery speed to help that. But let's type in Minion, first and foremost, and see if there's anything else we can be looking for here. I'm thinking Int, Vitality, cooldown recovery speed, or plus levels. Those are the kinds of things that I would want as prefixes on my helmet. Summon Bone Golem's interesting. You're currently not using Bone Golem. You have 4 skills that I like, and 1 that you're using to generate ward, because that's the volatile zombie thing, right? I don't know how important that is for you, because I've never used volatile zombie to generate ward. As an option, you could use Bone Golem for like a big taunt, to maybe that helps keep you safe. It's a possibility. Or you can go for like transplant for mobility. But if you like the ward generation from volatile zombie, let's go take a look at this real quick. These level of summon volatile zombie. If you choose to keep volatile zombie, first of all, this is a hybrid modifier, so it has increased minion damage, which is great because you're a minion build and you like minion damage. But that +2, let's see if that +2 is something that we could actually make use of. I wonder how good this really is for you. This seems a little sus to me, right? I'm kind of thinking like, if you're really using volatile zombie to generate ward, then what's Rip Blood doing? Because you're either casting one or the other, right? Because like they're both like things that you're using for sustain. I'm a little skeptical of having both of these the more that I think about it. How about the amulet? Amulet's got a good base, but it's missing health, it's missing other stuff. Let's look at the prefixes here. Again, the suffixes, I'm gonna kind of ignore those, but I think the prefixes, we need a little bit of something here. What's a good prefix for us? Minion damage. It's perfect. Minion damage, minion health? Are we really just gonna control F minion? Get out of here. There must be something else. There must be. So I would like to see some kind of amulet that looks like this. When it comes to these, to like browsing through these items and kind of thinking about like what kind of prefixes do you want? What kind of suffixes do you want? If you ever find yourself on any build thinking about, hey, this piece of item or this piece of gear is kind of boring. Like, what if your helmet's kind of boring? What if like increased critical strike chance? Like, this isn't good. You can always look for unique items as well, right? And that's something that I would do on these gloves, because gloves are a global item. Remember, like mages, primalists, mages, primalists, and acolytes. You have specific armor types for helmets, body armor, idols, relics are specific to your particular characters, and they can have like plus levels of stuff, and they can also have like, you know, interesting, cool modifiers. Gloves, boots, weapons, they're kind of boring. Like, they don't really have much going on. Which is why, in those particular slots, it might be nice to consider whether a unique item exists. So Raven's Rise, this thing gives what, +2 to spell minion level of skills, which seems just totally excellent. Minions take less damage while moving. Minion increased movement speed. It's got some necrotic res on it as well. I think by default, unless you're really looking for something from your gloves, these kind of seem like an auto include. It says they're very rare, but if you're spending any kind of time invested in your character, you might come across these. There's a necklace, there's a unique amulet that you can use on this build. Let's go spy those real quick. Minion crit multi. That could be kind of cool. What do we have for boots? All of my boots on every character that I play kind of look the same. It's kind of a matter of like, what base do you want? Do you want Solarum? Do you want Herborean? Do you want ward retention? And then like int or vitality, maybe attunement if you're a primalist. And then like movement speed, life. Let's go on to our relic, because our relic is the last character specific item that we can talk about. It really looks like we're using the wrong base here. These ruined bones seem like a pretty good choice, right? This is 66 minion health, increased minion movement speed, 36 minion damage. I think no matter what, we should be looking for ruined bones. If I had some extra gold sitting around, I'd want to gamble on these, right? What prefixes do you have? Prefixes tend to be offense, suffixes tend to be defense, right? And all of a sudden, this thing looks very good, right? Damage, or minion damage, minion health, health for ourselves, physical resistance, that looks excellent. The ring on the right is doing very little for us. In fact, I think it has fire res, and that's it. Crit avoid should really be something that you're prioritizing for these suffixes here. One more piece of gear that I'm going to worry about as the chest piece. And what are your prefixes? +4 critical strike chance for skeletons. Yeah, okay. I'm down for that. Damage reflected to attackers. Critical strike. Oh. Critical strike chance for you and your minions. Crit chance, percent crit chance, plus base crit chance. Both of those things look very good for me. What else is in here? Shared bleed effect, shared bleed duration, shared fire damage, shared necrotic, shared physical. No, 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 no. Minion freeze rate multi. No, 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 no. I wonder how good summon skeleton levels are for you. So let's save this real quick. Let's hit S and go over to summon skeletons. If we had 22 points instead of 20 points, what could we do with that? Would it be worthwhile? 12% damage. So we could get another 24% damage on our skeletons. That'd be a possibility. Fire arrow shoots more arrows but has a longer cooldown. Nah. So we could give them 10% increased attack cast movement speed. Seems okay. What else is over here? I think we just leave this at 20 points here. And what I might do is for our prefix, instead of trying to scale up the level of our skill with plus levels to skeleton archer or just skeleton, summon skeleton, might just do generic critical strike chance. I think the last thing that we can really say about this is lull poison res. It's so weird that poison res isn't really a good place to be, but just like life, percent life, all of a sudden it looks just so much better. Poison res is kind of weird in last epoch, in that like most of the poison damage, most if not all the poison damage, is just circles on the ground, and you could just not stand in them and avoid most if not all of the poison damage in last epoch. So even me, for playing like primarily in hardcore, having like only 30, maybe 35, maybe 40% poison res is pretty good. You don't really need much more than that. Yeah, I think after those couple changes, the first change I think is actually going to be the most impactful change, right? We talked about taking the cryomancer, the skeleton mage, and instead of having 2 points in Frozen Tome, we took those out and we spec 2 points into Gravetide instead. And then we just kind of massaged all the items, getting our important prefixes wherever we can, getting minion damage here, getting minion damage here. Having the right bases matters a lot in last epoch, as opposed to something like Path of Exile. Remember, like in Path of Exile, let's say you're playing a spell build. You can have like a level 1 or level 2 wand, and as long as it has, you know, +1 to chaos gems, or +1 all spell fire gems, whatever. As long as you have that, your build's gonna be pretty good. But in last epoch, the prefixes on your base types, they matter a whole lot. So it's important to keep those updated, even if you're explicit modifiers, even if the prefixes and suffixes look good. Upgrading to the next base type up is oftentimes the right choice. So I think that's about it. It's hard to do a fast review of a build in last epoch because I don't know every single build, and I'm much more familiar with things like Path of Building than I am like this. But just kind of poking around this build, honestly, as long as I can give good feedback, I hope it's useful for you in chat, because it's also helpful for me, right? It's good for me to like have this kind of exposure, poke around these builds, and learn things. Hopefully, as we start playing more and more last epoch again, ramping down from Path of Exile and back into last epoch, hopefully I'll get better at giving like concise reviews of this kind of build, because they're fun and I like it.